In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a few things about painting a metallic surface. In this case, it's one of those little balls that are decorating the top of a hames on a harness. So I'm going to start out with the darkest darks. I've got my base color rubbed over the whole painting, and I've washed in some of the basic areas as a guideline. And now I'm going in with the final layers. So I've got a dark paint that is slightly thinned, a mixture of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and I'm putting in the darker areas. One of the things to remember when you're painting a metallic object is begin by putting down paint in fairly obvious sections rather than blending it. You can always blend it a little bit later, but it is the obvious sections of paint that gives the indication of a reflective surface. The more you blend it, the less shiny it will end up looking. So with the darks in place, I will start to put in some colors. This particular little silver ball is reflecting the sky and a little bit of the landscape, and you won't see those exact reflections in the finished painting, but many of the colors and actually quite enhanced versions of the colors will be showing up here. Just putting in sections of paint next to each other, anywhere that I see them in the reference photograph. I'll show you the photograph in a minute. Taking extra care that the colors don't blend too much. Everything just stays in its own place. It's important when you're photographing an object that is shiny with the intention of painting the photograph that you have one solid light source. This image was taken outside, so there's an obvious light source in the sun. But if you're photographing inside, something like a metal picture or something that you want to paint, make sure you just have one strong light source, or the reflections will read all wonky and you won't get the illusion of a shiny metal surface that you want. A little bit of red in here, and I'm going to keep it quite clear without blending it too much. Reinforce it as just a nice little red reflection. And now I'm going to start adding some of the lighter colors. There's a lighter blue that is still a reflection of the sky, but just a lighter area. I'm not going to blend it. Just place it down. I will soften the edges a little bit at some point, but right now it's just a matter of placing the colors where they are. A slight bit of blending, but for the most part the colors are just put down and left. Switching anytime I want a clean bit of color, I'll switch brushes or wipe the brush off really well. Now there's a bit of reflection from the ground here. Still can't really tell looking at this ball what it's reflecting, but I know from taking the photo that it's out in a field, and this is the ground reflecting a bit on it. And I'll continue on just placing the colors a little at a time according to my reference photo. There'll be plenty of time to blend them later. Right now, as clean as I can put them down is exactly what I want to do. It'll all come together and look like a reflected little silver ball at some point. That's one of the tricks with painting reflections. They don't look like much at the start. They don't look like they're supposed to, but you just keep putting the pieces in. the darks and the lights, making sure that the darks and lights go right from really dark black right up to really light white, and then you'll have a very shiny object. Just a little bit of blending where I think it needs it, but for the most part, just colors placed down. Getting to the lightest area now, putting the highlights where the shine is on the ball. Being careful to keep a clean brush at all times. Just one color on the brush. You don't want them all muddled up. Let me give you a little look at my reference photo here. You can see that I've even enhanced the colors, made them a little sharper than they are, a little more into specific areas. And I don't know if you noticed, there's a lighter reflective surface around the outside that creates the illusion of the ball. So I'm putting that around. That'll show up even more as I outline with my background. Starting to come together now. Just continuing on, softening slightly if I think it needs it. Reinforcing just a little bit in certain areas. Just going to pop in a little more color here and there. Nice bright color to make it look very reflective. Anywhere I see a little color in my reference photo, I'm going to overemphasize it. As I mentioned, easy to cut it back, easy to blend it out a little bit if I ever want to. And with all the colors in place, I'll start to work around the outside with my background, and that will define the little reflective ball even more. Just using the wet paint against the paint of the ball itself to create a nice smooth line. It's easier to get a nice smooth line like this when you've got wet paint against wet paint. You could, of course, let the paint dry, but I really like the smoothness you can get when the paint is wet. I will just paint a little bit around this ball and I'll complete the background later. But if I start the edge like this, I will be able to get the lines that I want around the outside. Gives me just a little more control and freedom. Continuing on, finishing off this background outline. I can always go back in with another color to refine a little bit if I feel like it needs to bring it back a little bit of the edge. Easy to move the paint back and forth. So there you go. This is your little lesson on painting a metallic object. Just a tiny bit of refining here as I finish it up. Hopefully that will help you. The key points to remember are keeping the paint clean. Using your darkest darks and your lightest lights will give you the most reflective surface. And being very careful to use clean brushes as you go. Keep the colors separate, blend them only as much as you want to.